Hi, it's Grace, and I would love to explain my Wisdom from Experience project. So, the basics of my two interviews were that they didn't really have a set hour or 45 minutes of the day that they said, this is social studies time. Most teachers don't. But I was surprised to hear one teacher say they integrated it at least two times a week and the other say at least three times a week. So, that was very, very good. The first grade teacher I interviewed was all about giving me resources and telling me really awesome ways that she was able to engage her children, how it worked every single time throughout the years. However, the fourth grade teacher was super adamant that you really have to make adjustments based upon your students that come into your class every year because no two groups of kids are the same way. So I thought that was two interesting takes on social studies engagement. So the two teachers I interviewed were Miss Bryce and Miss Newell. Miss Bryce is at a school that is in a very low socioeconomic demographic. Miss Newell is working at the school that I am placed at. She is actually just right down the hall from my clinical educator. So her demographic is very different than Miss Bryce's, which was great because I actually turned this kind of into a little bit of a comparison. So, not only do they teach different grade levels, but their situations and their approaches to teaching and their reasons for motivation are just entirely different. But I learned a lot from both. So, Miss Newell teaches first grade. She has a ton of parent involvement in her classroom, a great relationship with her principal. They collaborate often. Her largest struggle in the classroom is that she just has a bunch of chatty patties. And she has two parents in the classroom that she really struggles to be involved. But everybody else sends things back on time and just loves to talk to her about their children. Now, Miss Bryce, on the other hand, teaches fourth grade, and it is in a very low parent involvement community. She has a decent principal relationship, but nothing that she says she would brag about necessarily. Her largest struggle in the classroom is motivation. She really struggles with her kids just not wanting to be there and not wanting to do anything because they don't see the point in it. And she has four parents who appear to be really involved in their kids' lives, but 4 out of 21 really isn't very good odds. Now, both of these teachers have taught for 10 plus years. They love their kids and they really do strive to keep their kids engaged. So, Miss Bryce, the fourth grade teacher, says that social studies is a way that she likes to motivate her students. So, she talks about how when she looks through history and she sees all these people who have defied odds, who have rose up out of really bad situations and who have just made the best of what they were handed. She loves to take those situations and tell those as stories to her fourth graders and turn them into kind of a motivational lesson along with a history and a social studies lesson. So she says that she's an effective storyteller and she was very blessed with that gift. And her fourth graders love hearing those motivational stories that are true, that are written down in history, because, if it happened once, it can happen again. Now, the way that Miss Newell uses social studies is a bit different. So, some of her kids, she would say off the record, are a little bit spoiled. They don't really have the responsibility that she wishes that they did. Their parents take very, very good care of them, sometimes to the extreme. So she loves to use social studies to teach them where they fit in the world and teach them about their decisions and how their decisions affect other people and let them know that every penny they spend, every decision they make is going to affect someone other than themselves. So she said that you have to put them in the world that you're trying to get them to see. So I thought that was interesting that if we really want our first graders to understand government, we need to build a government in the classroom and let them see how it works. If we want them to understand economics, we need to give them some economics in the classroom to deal with money, to talk about money, to handle dealings and things like that. My favorite quote that Miss Bryce gave was, "My students are precious and loving and work so hard as long as I care. The minute I stop caring is the minute their little worlds fall apart. For some of these kids, I'm the only person who's going to ask them how their day is and give them a tiny bit of love." So, in Miss Bryce's situation, along with teaching social studies, she's teaching these kids how to be a good member of a social society, because they're not being taught how to have good social skills at home. They're not being taught how to um, speak to other people with respect, how to build relationships, which has to be done if you're ever going to get a job anywhere. So they depend on her so much for encouragement, and then also just to be like that model person in their life who really teaches them how to be the best that they can be. So she uses social studies in that way to kind of better them as like societal people. Now, Miss Newell, on the other hand, loves throwing kids into the real world. So, my favorite quote that she said was, "There's no history book that can show you what the world around us can show you. Get on Google." I thought it was interesting that she said get on Google, but I know that what she meant by that was that the events that are happening in our current world are so relatable to things that kids see in their everyday lives. So, why not teach social studies by immersing students in the things that are happening around them already and educating them about their world while educating them about these five strands of social studies? Now, Miss Bryce's classroom, she has desks in her classroom and she likes to set them up in groups of four. She says five is okay. Groups of two, she says, aren't good because all personalities just don't click. And groups of six sometimes are just a bit too talkative, and she has issues with them respecting her whenever they're in larger groups. So she said that she likes to keep them in groups of four, and she doesn't do individual seating because her kids really love to collaborate. She said whenever she gives them that opportunity to collaborate throughout the day, they're more likely to listen and really be aware of what she's teaching up front whenever she asks them to be silent and kind of draw it back into themselves. Now, Miss Newell's classroom arrangement is very interesting. She had all the desks taken out of her class, and she just has tables in her classroom now. She has the tables are assigned to students, like students have an assigned table to go to, but they don't have a particular chair. So that can change it up every day as far as she cares, as long as the students are at the table. So they have a little freedom with where they can sit, but they're still um, at the table that she sees they need to be at. She said this also promotes group work and group projects, which they do a lot of in their classroom because they have that large table to work on. They don't have to go sit in the floor in a corner and drag all their stuff to another place. It's super convenient. She also said that collaboration is great, but like with these projects and collaborations, you have to do things in short terms. Give an instruction, let them do that, bring them back together and talk. Give another instruction, let them do it, bring them back together and let them talk. Because with first graders, they just don't quite have the capacity to go through a whole list of questions and stay focused yet. Now, Miss Bryce's favorite social studies lesson that she ever taught involved the Boston Tea Party. And she said when she first started talking about it, all the girls in the classroom got excited and they were a little confused. But she brought in some old clothes and she read a book about the Boston Tea Party. It's one of those fictional history books that kind of tells the story through someone else's eyes. And so she had a few of the guys in the classroom dress out and act out what happened in this tea party. And then afterwards, she had the boys who dumped the tea kind of put on trial and let the class discuss whether they made the right decision or not. And she said that that really evoked an incredible debate in the class. And she loves seeing that passion in her kids because it's something that she doesn't see very often. And she really has to pull it out of them. And she said that was a really good way to do it. Now, for Miss Newell's favorite social studies lesson, she is the one who's all about teaching responsibility. So she offered kids to have like their own businesses. So they each had jobs or businesses or places in the town hall and things like that. And they were given money and they were given ways to make money, ways to spend money. And she offered them things throughout, like, well, if you will give me, two of your dollars, then I'll give you a piece of candy. Or if you'll give me two of your dollars, I'll let you go sit with someone else. And she kind of used kids as examples of how not to spend money because their businesses went bankrupt. And it really opened a door for her to kind of show kids how you have to be really responsible with your money and how you spend it and how you trade. So I was really thankful to get to interview both of these ladies because they really brought to my attention how social studies really can be looked at in two very different ways. So, one teacher used it as motivation in her classroom, and one teacher used it as showing responsibility. And I'm sure they use it in many other ways. Those were just their favorite ways. But it was really cool to see how these teachers are paying such close attention to exactly what their students need in that school where they are at right now. So it wasn't like they had one lesson plan and no matter what school they ended up, they were going to use that one. They really waited until they got to know their kids and then they planned their social studies instruction based upon what the kids needed and how they could learn and how they could just better their lives and their education through social studies. So I really believe that these teachers were super effective and they really know how to teach powerful and purposeful social studies.